Hi, I am Ankit and welcome to Rabotab. So in this video, we will learn what are the different types of tasks of an explain. So this video will cover graph classification task, node classification task, link prediction task, and single instance versus multi-instance explanations. So if you are already familiar with graph machine learning, then you may be knowing that there are three types of tasks of any graph machine learning problem. And these are graph classification task, node classification task, and link prediction task. Because there are three entities, node, links or edges, and the graph as a whole. So in graph classification task, the task of a model is to predict the label for an entire graph. For example, the property of a chemical molecule, right? The example could be uh, the classification of a drug as toxic or non-toxic. So the objective of GNN model in this kind of task is to classify the drug as toxic or non-toxic. And there could be any other property also which you want to predict. So what is the role of an explainer in such kind of graph machine learning problem? The role of explainer is basically to highlight that which subgraph patterns and which node features basically made the model to choose what it predicts, right? For example, this drug is classified as toxic. So the role of an explainer is to highlight that which subgraphs within this molecule, for example, an aromatic ring or some other functional group. So which subgraphs are basically responsible for classifying this drug as toxic, or which node features, for example, the valency of the atoms could be responsible for classifying the drug as toxic. So this particular job, that is to highlight which subgraph patterns and which features are responsible for such prediction, is basically the job of an explainer in this kind of graph machine learning problem. Now, node classification task means that the model is interested in predicting the label for a single node in the graph. Now, as an example, if we consider this social network where the users have some interests or hobbies like sports, like music, like gaming, like traveling, etc. So the objective of the graph machine learning problem here is to figure out the interest of an user. That is called a node classification task, basically. And this could be helpful for community detection or maybe targeted advertising or maybe for other objectives as well. So what is the role of an explainer in this kind of uh, graph machine learning problem? So the role of explainer is basically to answer which neighbors, which edges, and which node features cause this node to get this label. For example, the model predicts that this user is interested in gaming. So the role of explainer is to see whether this is because of this particular neighbor or this particular neighbor or maybe some other user, or which relationships or links or edges are responsible for this kind of prediction, or which node features, which in this case could be the gender of the user or the age of the user, is primarily responsible for this kind of prediction. So this is the task of explainer in this node classification graph machine learning problem. In link prediction problems, basically the task of model is to predict whether an edge or link should exist between two nodes or not. For example, in a social network like this, the task of the model is basically to predict the future friendships between any two users, and this could be useful for friend recommendations on social media or maybe some other tasks. Now, the role of explainer in this kind of graph machine learning problem is again to look for which parts of the graph convince the model then that these nodes should be connected or not. For example, the model predicts that yes, there is a possibility of future friendship between these two users. So the role of explainer in this case would be to identify whether it is because of, say, this mutual friend, this mutual relationship of theirs, or maybe due to some other part of the graph. So this is the role of an explainer in a link prediction graph machine learning problem. Now, so these are the three tasks of, these could be the three tasks of an explainer, depending upon which type of graph machine learning problem we are interested in and what we are basically interested in knowing from the model. Now, there are single instance and multi-instance explanations. So single instance means that the explainer is interested in one specific prediction, like it is asking that why did the model make this specific prediction, right? Now this would be of interest to us when we are debugging mistakes in the model or we are understanding some unusual prediction that happened in the model or we are learning how GNNs basically reason, how our model is reasoning, right? Now, on the contrary, multi-instance explanations basically are interested in many predictions at once. So, if you are interested in knowing that what does the model generally rely on across many cases, so multi-instance explanations are then of interest to us. So they basically helps you discover common important substructures across the model, or they may be of help to you if you want to understand overall model behavior and if you want to build trust in the model's reasoning as well. So there are explainers which are optimized for single instance explanations like GNN explainer, which I already talked about in my videos. And there are explainers which are optimized for multi-instance explanations, like, for example, PG explainer. So it depends on what your interest is. What do you want to get out of the model? What do you want to know about the model's predictions? Uh, and you can choose the best explainer available for you, or you can also think about combining different types of explainers or explanation methods uh, to fulfill the objective of your particular problem. So this is it in this video. We discuss what are the tasks of explainers in different graph machine learning problems. For example, graph classification task, node classification task, and link prediction task. And we also discuss what are single instance and what are multi-instance explanations. I hope you now have a good understanding about what is the task of an explainer in different scenarios and in different graph machine learning problems. If you have any questions, feel free to leave in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Wish you all the best.